Okay, there we go. I think we are now set and ready to go. Yay! All right, all right. Gonna just welcome us in, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Icons at the Table. I'm your host, Hannah Elsie. I'm the founder of the Iconicity Movement, the Next Era Wealth Community, and the Iconic Life podcast. And I'm so glad that you're here. This is a space where I created so we can gather again intentionally around these virtual tables for real live conversations about what it means to live a life of calling, of wealth, joy, and purpose. So I created this series, the Icons at the Table, to promote conversations around the topics of community, collaboration, and holistic wealth. And I named it Icons at the Table because I believe I've got some amazing individuals who are coming, but I also believe so deeply that we are not meant to build our iconic lives alone, and that we should be coming together and championing one another in our work, in our lives, and in my work, I use my framework, the ICON method, which stands for identity, calling, overflow, and network, right? And these conversations here they'll touch on the first three pillars, but we really focus on that last piece, the network or community, because we are created for fellowship, for community, for doing life together. Our iconic lives, the ones that we co create, they're created in conversation, in rooms where truth is spoken, where ideas are exchanged, and new ways of thinking are born, and new perspectives are created and shared and envisioned. So this isn't just like an interview or a panel or anything like that. It's a roundtable, virtual roundtable. I've got my electrolytes and my water. Uh, the other day I had some coffee, right? So like whatever, yeah. And what do you have, Shanice? You got some water there as well? Yes. So whatever kind of gets us hydrated and happy, and we chat about, we explore what does holistic wealth actually look like to us? Wealth of resources, of our relationships, of our time, our freedom, our faith, our impact that we're here to create, and how collaborating, not competing, is what allows all of us to rise higher together. One of my favorite sayings is if you want to go fast and far, go together, right? So if you're here listening to this, remember you're not just tuning in, you're sitting at these tables with us. Imagine yourself at our table. Imagine yourself at Shanice's table because it's warm and sunny there right now. Mine is cold and gray. But imagine yourself here with us and chime in on the comments. I'm trying to keep an eye on the live stream as well. So if you guys have input on what we're talking about, we'd love to hear from you guys or have any questions for us or anything like that. But again, welcome, welcome. And today, my guest is Chenisse. So happy to have you back again. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I know you and I resonate a lot on the whole community and collaboration part of it. And
Mm,
holistic wealth, I think in general, we've had a lot of conversations that have been really rich and I've enjoyed them. So today we're going to just dive into that a little bit more. So before I dive into my questions, I actually want to give you just a minute, like I like to do on my podcast, is to give you the mic and just introduce yourself to the community, who you are, where you're at in the world, and what you do.
mm. Thank you for giving me the mic at the table. So like you said, my name is Chenisse. Right now, I am currently in Mexico and just outside of Mexico City at my friend's um, hotel and retreat center. We have like horses back there. We have like, I think there's six dogs on the property, and I'm looking out at this like cornfield with lots of trees and mountains in the distance. There's a volcano back there.
Mm,
And I find myself here periodically in these big transition moments in my life. And that leads into like who I am and what I do. So my work is as an embodied evolution mentor. And really what that means is dropping out of identity as something that we think and identity as something that we be, that we live.
mm,
And creating a coherence and harmony in our environment with that. And so for me, that looks like being immersed in nature and tending to these conversations. And I love that you put an emphasis on that because a lot of time I find that people are kind of not so much in our circles, but in the overculture, talking at each other and competing for space to be heard and domineering conversation, which
Mm,
isn't actually conversation, right? It's
yeah.
more of a monologue. And so the embodied evolution method that I work with is creating those polarity integrations so that we can look at the unconscious power dynamics that are conditioned into our identity, into our lifestyle, into how we build our business so that we can be more intentional, more embodied, and um, allow for those moments of peak emotion of initiation when life kind of crumbles at the seams to be leveraged rather than to be outcast as this like too much, too much in the sense of too emotional, too sensitive, too ambitious, too spiritual, all of these things. And really create in what I call a new earth business architecture, which essentially is built on a foundation of these genuine relationships and on collaboration. So, leading from that sense of resonance from a soul level. So, we're building with intimacy, and to actually reach that closeness of intimacy, there's these emotional layers that we sift to through to get to soul essence. And rather than that being like an afterthought after our offer suite is established, after our sales pathways are established, after our marketing message, our positioning, um, all of these things are established, we kind of reverse engineer and build in a way that allows for that embodiment of the evolution for our like big, what I call new earth vision to actually fit into the business model.
Okay. Yeah. It's beautiful. Kind of okay, so you kind of touched on a couple of the things I was going to bring up. So, but let's dive a little bit deeper into let's talk about community. And again, I know you and I have had conversations, but we're going to share it today with those who are here. When you take away like the buzzwords that are out there, the coach speech or whatever, what does community, actual, real community, what does that mean to you right
Mm,
now in your day to day? And how are you intentionally cultivating that in your life, in your work, in your relationships?
mm. Whenever I think of community, I think of like immediately connection and resources. And like there can be a preconceived notion of resources being financial resources, and that is an element, but also it is like being emotionally resourced, being um, resourced in the sense of opportunities for um, like expansion, for collaboration, for referrals, things like that. And so right now in my day to day, well, for example, like I said, I'm here at my friend's um, hotel retreat center space, and we're exchanging, doing some like work on the grounds and taking care of it while she's away in Spain, and we get to enjoy being on the land here. So that to me is like an opportunity that, yeah, sure, I could like come and pay to stay here, but there's like a different flavor when it's tuning into that interdependence and being supported and resourced in that way.
Like resourcing one another in that kind of like a communal sharing of the resources. Because, like you said, you're helping to take care of it while she's away. Like there's a benefit on both sides of that. I love that. That's really good. And then I know, like for myself, I know like community is not just one aspect, right? It's not just our business. It's not just our, everyday, like who do I have friends with and things like that. And I know for some of us, I think we've even talked about this before. Like we intentionally have to cultivate um, relationships and community that is not just looks like in our who's next door, right? Or in our everyday circles, because sometimes that night might not even be aligned community for us. So like building an intentional community that is aligned for us in the online spaces, because I know that we've definitely done that. I've made a lot of friends around the world, in different masterminds and networking with people. And that's one of my favorite things I think about being an entrepreneur is one of the many things I like about it. But it's like the ability to like meet incredible people from around the world. I know when I used to, before I was an entrepreneur, I love traveling. Right. And so I used to do a lot of traveling. And one of my favorite things to do is when I go on vacations, like on by myself or um, with partners or families, whatever. But especially when I was by myself, I would make a point of like getting to know the people I was with at wherever I was staying. If I was a cruise or if my table mates, if I was at a resort, like, meeting people and like learning their stories and like hearing. And I was so fascinated by the people I got to meet from all, things I never even considered that, for work or like experiences of life. And it was such an amazing thing for me. I remember the very first time that I really left the country. 'Cause I'm not counting like going to Canada or something like that, like for when I was a kid. But like when I was 17 years old, when I went overseas for the first time, and I spent an extended period of time in Ukraine and one summer, and it was so completely eye-opening for me about the different experiences, lived experiences that were on the same
Mhm.
planet that I was on, right?
Mhm.
And so like being able to build community with people from all different walks of life and whatnot. And I think my parents were actually really intentional about it because are a biracial family, right?
Mhm.
When biracial families were not a thing. Now it's kind of the hype and the vibe, right? But it was not a thing when my parents got married. It was just a few short years after it became legal to do it in the US. So
Mhm.
there was a lot of, you know, we grew up in a very different aspect. We were straddling two worlds and never quite accepted in either. But
Mhm.
because of that, and also, I mean, different reasons, but my parents really cultivated us learning other people's experiences, seeing their point of views, being
Mhm.
able to like really dive in and like meet. We had friends, international friends. My parents were always having people over, like trying new styles of food and things like that. But that gave me such a rich experience as a child. Like, not, it was just normal to like meet new people and learn who they were and what made them like what their perspectives were and was important to them and their food, their culture, their habits, and like embracing that and learning that. And I realize now how priceless that was my parents did for us, right? And I just carry that on throughout my life, career, and now entrepreneurship as well. And I love that community because you get so many different perspectives, right? Like there's such a richness for having so many different perspectives and different in a community like that. So anyway, I love that about community. I know that you could probably resonate a bit with that because you've definitely have done a lot of traveling as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is so special that your family had that like open orientation to different cultures like that and like really brought that into your formative years. And I can see how that is has like blossomed in your orientation to how you're leading your business. And that came later on for me, but it also was something that I fell in love with like YouTube when I was really young. Because I grew up in a very small, like rural farming town in Eastern Canada. And when I say town, that's even a stretch. It was like very villagey, potato fields, if you can imagine. And so when the internet started to be a thing, I would like go into these different worlds and like daily vlogging was something that was starting to gain popularity. And so I was getting these vignettes into so many different people's lives. And the way that
Mm,
they were sharing online was again with this like openness to share like what's going on, their thought process, their feelings. And I got to really experience like, oh, what I'm seeing here in my immediate environment of, in a small farming town, there's like a bit of an echo chamber of mentality. And so I always had the dream to like go out and travel. And so when I graduated, I went to a university out of province. And then when I graduated from university, I ended up being a flight attendant. And it was so fascinating to get to really like dive into that cultural experience of learning different people's preferences, their ways of relating, their cultures, their traditions, and things like that. And it has led me to live in different places, and it is really beautiful to have these social networks that allow us to kind of have like a sampler platter
Yeah,
of
I love
different
that.
cultures and lifestyles and form these rich networks of community that then, again, coming back to community as connection and resources, well, now I have connections all over the world. So whenever I want to travel somewhere, it's not like I'm just going, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. It's like, oh, I'm going to travel somewhere and I know this person here. So let's meet up and let's do something. Like, I just visited my mom in Florida last week. And there's a woman that I recently connected with through my podcast, Jennifer Nicole. She does oceanic flow and leadership, embodiment and coherence work. And she's in Florida. So we met up and we went to hang out at the beach and got sushi together. And it was so nourishing to actually get to meet up in person. And that's something that I love to do with the online space. And I know you do too, is like create those intentional moments for connection in person because it is like that next level of intimacy.
Yeah, and I think that's actually really important, right? Because with the internet, the interwebs, we get to access the far corners of the world in a ways that we've never historically been able to do, right? Which really brings a lot of amazing opportunities, like you said. But there's also, the other side of it where you step out of like experiencing real life and like, authentic life, I want to say. Because we all
Mm-hmm.
know that a lot of the things online are not always authentic life. So I do know that there is a space for creating real intentional, true relationships online because I've been able to cultivate that and do that. And I
Hmm.
know you as well, right? But there is something really powerful about being able to meet in person and connect again, right? So I think there's, that bit of both is definitely where I find that beautiful medium, having both spaces. And you're right, like when you get to travel places and you're like, oh, I know someone here, and I get to meet up with them, and like that's so cool because I feel like I know this person already because you do from online, but then you meet them in person and it like, oh. It connects and it's like, oh my gosh, it's real, right? And it's so
Yeah.
fun. I know we kind of had a lot of that experience at our, the conference that we went to in the fall
Hmm.
we got to meet so many different sisters
So
who from
exciting.
that we had right exactly like I feel like I've already known you all my life but like now I actually met you for the first time face to face right so that's it's such a lovely part of that okay so let's talk a little bit about collaboration because I know we hear that word a lot right and but I think it kind of ties into or segues into from community right
Hmm.
because I think when you're in a true community you almost like organically kind of start collaborating or you should right um, and again, not just in business, but
Right.
we are kind of talking about business stuff, right? So that's why I do like to kind of pick your brain and when you come on these things, like what does that look like for you? And how are you trying to work out like real collaboration in practice, not just like in theory, like, oh yeah, but I'm on a panel with somebody, but like truly collaborating with someone and how like what are maybe some of the boundaries or because there is some discernment that must be done with the collaborative things as well, right? So it's an aligned
Mhm.
versus like just convenient for one or the other or not even, aligned at all. Things like that. So like how do you kind of lead yourself through that and in practice how do you work out collaboration?
Mhm. Something that I love that you touched on there is like the discernment piece. And that's been a like spotlight of conversation in my world recently. It's like how does discernment develop? Like how do you really get to know those nuance decision making factors in collaboration? And my experience has really just been like the around and find out philosophy, right? I've been collaborating with different people in person online since I started my journey as an entrepreneurship. The way my like energy field functions the best is when I'm responding to someone, and so I've always sought that out. And sometimes it's been like super harmonious and fluid, and other times it's like, you're throwing a ball against a wall and it's like, where did that go? So things that I've found are important in a collaboration is obviously shared values that are embodied, not aspirations, um, and a clear communication around the different expectations or agreements in a collaboration. So if this is like a collaboration where there's an aspect of sales and marketing, like what is the expectation of the workload division of that? Where is someone's zone of genius and where is maybe someone need a little bit extra support? And are those complementary? Or do the two people have like the same growth edges that's going to make it difficult, right? It doesn't mean it's impossible, but like when we have these rich networks, depending where we are in our journey with entrepreneurship, it may make more sense at a certain time to collaborate with someone who has XYZ experience or zone of genius that, like I said, is complementary for a collaboration. And I want to
Mhm.
ground that into an example of a year-long collaboration that I am taking part of right now called the Light Language Summit. This is a creation by Martin. She has been on your podcast
Yes.
before. And the way she has created this summit is so unique from anything I've ever witnessed on the internet. And it's actually like a collaboration at every touch point. Like we came up with the structure and the branding and the price point, like how we're gonna market it, like everything together. Like we have a Telegram channel and everybody contributes. Like for example, we have Irene Diaz who does soul branding alchemy. So we had a session with her where we channeled the brand guides for the summit, and then we co-created a sales page from that. And then recently, we've been launching now more publicly on the front end. And so we are each responsible for a week of co-creating content with Audrey. So she's giving us prompts, we're going back and forth, creating the copy and submitting our images so that it's not all on her to create every aspect of a summit because it actually is a really big project, you know.
Mhm. True,
When
true.
you participate in it, it's kind of like, okay, these sessions and then we're like consuming that. And even at that touch point, she designed it in a way so that it isn't just like, okay, you go to these sessions and they're disconnected and you get a taste of people's work and that's kind of it. We're all going to have the spaciousness to provide our sessions, attend each other's, and it's happening over, I think it's a 9-week period versus like a weekend. Um, and she's also hosting integration sessions so that the material that's delivered can be processed in community and applied to your business. So that's one of my favorite examples that I have to like
That's
ground
beautiful.
how collaboration works in community.
That's really great. Yeah, and the aspect of you said integration, right? Like it's not just, oh, we're gonna go take notes and then like whoosh that goes away. Like you have those integration sessions. I
Mm,
think that's actually really key because I think we all, if we're at any kind of journey of personal development or growth or entrepreneur, whatever, like we've been to a lot of seminars, panel, like all these things, right? And I know I have multiple notebooks full of notes on things, right? But like if we're not ever
yeah.
utilizing that in our life, what good is that? I mean, there is good to it. So I'm not just saying
Yeah,
throw
it
it out
opens
because
doors.
there's still nuggets that you pick up, whatever. So I'm a big fan and proponent of it. But I think it's really important that you have the integration part of it. That's really key.
Mhm.
Okay, let's tip into that final pillar about holistic wealth. Okay, and I know you and I have talked a lot about this and had some really fun with that stuff in my table of icons. But when you think about holistic wealth, beyond just finances, but also about finances, if you want that, right? What does that look like in your life, Shanice? And like, how has that definition of holistic wealth kind of evolved for you over time?
Mhm. The way I've defined wealth is from the inside out, having infinite possibility to choose from.
Mm.
So holistically, that's looking at the whole ecosystem of our life and like our mind, body, soul, whole, right? So in my life, again, I always like to bring it back to nature. For me, I feel my most wealthy when I'm in an immersive natural environment because I get to choose to have my feet on the earth, to have the sun on my skin, and to be really rooted in the consciousness of nature, which in my perspective is the best mentor. And like wealth from our body is that ability to feel good in our body, to feel alive and lit up by our relationships and our work. Um, to be able to nourish ourselves with whole foods and high quality water and um, then like healthy inputs, thinking of like, okay, what information am I consuming? What
Mm.
um like content am I consuming, right? There's an abundance of information out there.
Yeah.
And so having that holistically wealthy um I'd say orientation to life is intentionally developing that discernment piece by fucking around and finding out and choosing consciously where we are placing our attention. That is our really our most valuable resource is our attention.
Mm.
And
Our
so
focus. Yeah.
if we're not aware of, I'm going to bring it back to the unconscious power dynamics that operate based on fear-based control systems, then under the surface of our conscious awareness, there's all of these energetic cords that are hooking into, maybe our sense of self-worth, our sense of um, success, our sense of productivity, our sense of self, really identity. And these can lead us in a direction that, might I'd say we're always on the path in some capacity, but it can be like, we're taking the scenic route, we're taking a detour versus I always like to think of our dharma, our life purpose, our mission as being like this super highway. And it's not to like shame or blame or say something one way is right or wrong. It's more so like what is going to make us feel most aligned and alive in our bodies from that holistic perspective.
Yeah. It's good. The freedom of options to choose. Yeah, I think that sums it up in a way. But yeah, that's beautiful. Okay. As we were starting to wrap up, thank you again for coming on.
Oh, it's gone by so fast.
Oh, I know, right? I'm like, oh, a 20-minute chat. I'm like, oh, wait, no, we're already at 30 minutes. Yeah, that's it. But it's great. It's great. And this is just scratching the surface. This is really just trying to like
Yeah.
promote and like cultivate these conversations because I think it's worthy things that we need to be doing. We need to be like getting into this and like really paying attention and not just like these are conversations we need to be having in our circles and keep it spreading because this needs to be brought into like the forefront. Because I don't know about you, but I'm not here for the fake and the nonsense that, is purported as the way to live a life. We have one life to live here, and like, what are we doing with it? Like, what are we here for? And I'm really, really passionate about that. So I love to drop into a little bit of a vision slash desire for yourself, right? And I like to do this. So I'm gonna, and I know you can do this beautifully. So if you had 30 seconds to just dream out loud, I want you just to envision for yourself. No playing small, like just like go for it. And again, I know you know how to do this. What are you building towards right now? Like, what are you envisioning? What do you truly want or to create or experience? And it can be like right in this future or like a big long-term vision.
hmm I'm gonna go with a big long-term vision, and you know what I'm gonna say already because I can't shut up about this. and it's very fitting for where I am right now, is
Hmm.
the farm project, the eco-residential retreat centers ex agrihoods. And so what that means is really rooting into community in a land-based project. And for me, that involves a food forest, birthing centers, a shala to host retreat offerings, a learning space for people to come to the land and actually um, receive the blueprint of how to create an intentional community like this with a cooperative model versus like a hierarchical model. And to be in harmony with nature and animals and to really rebuild the village and share the responsibility of child rearing and to be able to weave wisdom in the way of shared responsibility, in the way of operating in our zone of genius and actually being resource physically day to day in our lives with the support network that allows that to be expressed in its highest timeline.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Ah, all right. You guys, this is why I believe so deeply in spaces like this and cultivating these things where we can reach out and have conversations from Mexico to Pennsylvania, right? Like that's where we are right now. We're not even in the same room, but we're still connecting and conversating around these things because these authentic conversations change how we see ourselves. It changes how we build things, how we lead our lives, how we create our iconic lives, right? So, Icons at the Table is part of a bigger movement that I'm building, the Iconicity movement, but it's rooted in the belief that we don't have to choose between depth and success or impact and wealth. I believe we get to create lives that we are wildly in love with, right? I say that a lot. We get to build wealth that actually supports our families, our communities, our callings, right? The future that we're stewarding, that we are envisioning, that we are co-creating, right? And we get to do it together in
Mm.
collaboration, in community, right? So, you guys, thank you so much for coming to the table today. Shanice, thank you so much for coming on as a guest. Thank you for your
Mhm.
honesty and your presence and your beautiful voice that you brought to the table here. And then for all of you guys, until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and let's keep building. Let's keep building from truth. Let's keep having these conversations. Thank you guys for joining us today.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for holding the space, and thanks for everybody who tuned in live and on the replay. I'm excited
Yes.
to, um,
And I will tag you in this, Shanice, so people can find you as well. So they
yeah,
can, follow up with you and if they want to hear more
yeah,
about your beautiful vision that you have coming up or how to get involved, things like that, or, all of your offerings that are coming up. So definitely. But
mm,
yes, thank you again.
yeah,
All
that's
right,
what I was
guys.
gonna say. I'm excited for all the conversations going to spark from this. So thank you.
Good. All right, guys.
Bye bye.